nature necessary with exceptions and exception nature, because they have been faking exceptions, but also with the interbranch increasingly at location slashes, including online. They're just faking and changing what's online, what they think about it. Oh, how do you know what we're feeling? It's recorded. They have been preventing people from getting a response on paper where there are rules with violence, they want to separate the acts because they already put me in fake conversations at the police station when I was a kid and now as an adult, and at a hospital too. When I had to yell I said, okay. I asked calmly first. I said, I'm going to tell people. I need people to call the police without telling you guys why. Because I knew I was going to catch them this way. Because one can't record the police. But I knew they would record themselves. And they did. In other words, I caught them with a Kevin Dillon. And many tied to him, I don't even know their names. Like people with the Parks and Recreation, involved also with Hartford Hospital as patients that apparently might have, it's plausible that they were unmarked police forms for a number of reasons. I say that, but even if they were, that person's involved with all kinds of natures of organized crimes, identity theft, fraud, slanders. I never had anything to do with that person. I only know him. He told, like, for example, at one time he was trying to plant evidences with a Ray Clow and a Joe DeMar, make fake exception. It was real quick at a community center in Wethersfield. They recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed. They have rules with spots in New Britain and West Hartford with the intelligence community. They have been putting fake things in databases with their educators. I don't even know all their names. I know there's a Mr. Neville involved with it. And they've been planting evidences next to Trinity College, next to CCSU. And those people have their own connections. And they have collusion /S with it, also with former director of the F.B.I, Robert Luskin. Heather Hansen and Joe DeMar said that there's a Don LaConch involved with them. Planting evidences, fake ties, fake natures of ties to me. And their rules with home break-ins, with Joe DeMar, with the Heather Hansen, and her with other guys too. And the differences of that. And that's also time that collusion /S years later with untimely deaths with the same house, with behavior racketeering. At the same time, there was intercities. There were murders involved, untimely deaths. One at Trinity College, one with one of the people planting evidence on all sides of my house. Rolls is a Robert Rodriguez. Things were confirmed to me on Facebook that were also recorded other ways true, and then them hiding it. And when I say them, I mean including the interbranch. WFSB faked conversations with me. They increasingly have a whole bunch of people I don't know, and a bunch of people and tied to, and as people associated with whiting forensics since before I was born, and tied to Central Connecticut State University before I was born. They're increasingly involved with a whole bunch of different countries and predators with foreign and domestic military, right through world wars and right through Civil War. You guys have replaced James Madison's communications. The law experts with Marbury versus Madison. They're relying on the history experts that are having been used remotely, criminally, foreign influence, tactically, delusions raw, keeping what our founders declassified, removed, putting fake things, making nature debate, and keeping it everyone blaming other things, others, ourselves for what the breaching method caused. And then it shows the identities of law. They need to have the people do that. They're getting themselves involved with criminal instances dishonestly because they have never stopped being dishonestly. They're putting fake things in databases. Increasingly, Wethersfield students will tell you that Joe DeMar was a creep. He was making up fake ties to me, fake natures of ties to them too. He's involved with all kinds of federal evidences crimes and organized crimes, including with sexual and medical offenders with a John DeMar of little kids in grammar schools and middle schools with people involved with upskirt natures and medical families involved with what's his name? A Mr. Abruzzi, and people tied to my fourth grade class, increasingly involved with medical offenders of kids, and state police involved with the Sal Civiello. And I never had a conversation with them. They need to put fake ties, fake nature ties to me. They tried to put a fake exception with the Eric Jensen, with the Sal Civiello, and people on off Two Rod Highway involved with identity theft, fraud, slanders, with a bunch of people tied to my neighbors involved with the police confessions over the phone too. And they attached me to fake conversations with them as a kid. Now as an adult, I shouldn't have to. You guys are changing and faking digital evidences, preventing people short words so you can fish for means to pretend you didn't know people. Oh, there's an example. I don't even see any evidences. They're fishing. They're already caught. They're already involved with differences, racketeering, worse than war crimes. Please, Fox Connecticut News, follow mandated law proper and get only 3 branches of government. Get the people from the Hartford courts and the Britain Superior Court onto paper with the police forms and their sources, switching and forging names. There's an Officer Hunter, but it's not clear if that's really what his name is. He's involved with leaders of the kids, further involved with organized crimes with them, and pretending it's legitimate reasons. It's not legitimate reasons. And how that is exploited, is increasingly involved with people timing where people are going to walk and acting on both sides of issues. And you know, people aren't going to say, well, why didn't you say anything about it? They know that why they're not going to say anything about that. You guys have been doing this each year connected. They're learning from that. In other words, you guys are all fake. The people who pretend they're speaking about truth, all natures of investigators, they're shown too. They're already being and haven't been used remotely, criminally foreign influence / hyper criminally foreign influence. I'm not even a lawyer. There's a Trantolo and a Trantolo. Sought me out to record, confess, demonstrate, confirm. I barely spoke with them. These are people changing and faking what's digitally recorded, slander, preventing mandated law because of the rules with evidences, racketeering with judges, prosecutors, victims advocates. There are victims advocates involved with New Britain Superior Court, Hartford courts, and people out of the state judicial branch office and corrections offices involved with identity theft, fraud, slanders, all kinds of evidences rackets, and people with the state capital of Connecticut and next to it involved with all kinds of medicines, crimes with kids, with elderly homes, with veterans homes. You see how those veteran homes look just like those buildings in New York City behind people in rap videos. And in other words, oh, you don't even live there. Listen to this though. The suburbs were designed before America's founders were born. And you guys replaced what they committed. They did not have free speech. You have the nature of debate about that, where the people who did their homework and the people who didn't do their homework are collusion / that's what the difference of that too. You guys are criminally foreign influence treatments of principles. Otherwise, you would have had black people's whites of eyes, because that's principle. We have eyes that were generated by that which shows us too. It generates that with other species bodies to show us what is not us nor them, but it is all things anyway. In many prey, vaccines, into different names. Until we all discern, because we're supposed to be led by the hyper invisible, but still discernible. We have to be able to talk about it. So we need those names of scientific value. So one can be. In other words, there are proofs that Allah's name spells alpha long, alpha's high. That long. Yeah. Long alpha's high. And this has to do with alpha and omega and yin yang. And this has to do with the constant and the variable. More probably how this was appreciated by the ancients and taught. And there are 3 identities of relationship to itself. That one identity of value progression, again, that is not our species body, not the other species body, but it is all things anyway, so it is our species body. It is that identity of time / forever nature that is showing us it is the body binding. Why and how we know us. We know every human species body of the individual species body. We know an extent of time past. We know an extent of time now. Active grouped truths. And we know an extent of time to come, truth to come. But even greater and more finite, we could discern the only increasing value of its identity relationship to itself with the value of seasons that aren't even here yet. These three parts of time, to an extent, we know. We know that there is a part before this that we know we don't know. We know that there is a part active group, there are parts that we know we don't know about now. No, we also know we have what we know replaced because we have black people's whites of eyes. And we also know that the counters have stayed collusion / F.B.I and haven't been used remotely if we pay attention. But while we are paying attention to that, simultaneously we're becoming aware of how the relativity of all sides of criminal and civil cases, the news at the same time, and the identities of the court, including the identities of the positions with the court, like the victims' advocates, they are being used to screen and to keep, conjoined the worst roles within the worst furtherance of overt criminal enterprises and private ones, increasingly with names next to the state corrections offices of Wethersfield, Connecticut, and the state, which is at the Hartford-Wethersfield line, with people named Demoro and Cololo, also involved with foreign and domestic military, with worse than just criminal incompetence, collusion / S, with people named Scalora, involved with identity theft, fraud, slanders, between campuses, people that don't even go to the same campuses, with people that are on the same campuses, don't even know each other. And they're pretending not even in the same classes. They're putting other in databases. With exceptions, they're using that criminally foreign influence too. All sides of criminal and civil cases and depositions, recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed, the leaders of the kids, of a Mike Pandolf, and of people named McCord, the recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed, involved with all sides of criminal and civil cases, and people associated with that in the courts themselves, and people out the state judicial branch offices and correction offices, involved at the same time with overt criminal enterprises, private ones, a whole bunch of different countries, and worse than just terrorism. And it was effectively used to pull off the torture narratives and natures, speaking about building law. In other words, certain type of victim / hyper victim where even the differences of campuses A through Z was exploited. This needs people blaming other things, others, ourselves, for what it knew that nature would continually demonstrate to us, like where and how we are all sickly, non-distinctly hurt by a human fact, tribute, nature, breaching method, being and having been roles with all kinds of subjects that are inseparable from each other, like witch trials and slavery, in which I had other crazy laws at this and means to uphold roles with that to an extent / S. Otherwise, having everyone sense for the breaching method, someone not rolls to an extent / S. And while that extent / S was locked in, no one realized how it could be and was and is exploited. That originally manifest with syntax nature. With which had been forced roles with it that no one wanted. Native Americans, colonists, the crazy countries that locked that down, while themselves they were being individually grouped in together, having been propagated by a breaching method smaller than their actual identities, so they could maintain the names of simultaneously multi-front, the individual names of the phenomena of countries that can be only operated by locations, areas, and states names, and individual voicings, and have them criminally foreign influence, tactical delusions wrought and needing to counter on one way, and the individual who's going to voice another way is exploiting how and why. I mean, it's exploiting the way nature communicates with us. It's exploiting how there is an identity of relativity / hyperrelativity. We all have black pupils, whites of eyes, and they are the same color eyes, and they are different at the same exact time. And the other species bodies have eyes distinctly, but non-distinctly too, and simultaneously. But per that further, not us nor them, but it is all things anyway, a further distinct identity of simultaneous nature, therefore of relativity. And if we pay attention, it is relativity / hyperrelativity. One way. And it is relativity / hyperrelativity another way. There's other sequence nature conversely. And it comes with another part of itself as a third, hyper invisible, but still discernible. The present participle and the past participle. Understand that we are appreciating them as names for a verb. Hyper additionally, to discern the hyper additional volume science that identity is. Not per theory and per what yin yang and alpha and omega are about. Everything's about the constant / variable and the variable / constant. Because one thing will only stay constant. And we could ignore its system, but it will only demonstrate with force, space, nature transfer. And nature being relativity with special difference. So it's hard to discern, but unless you appreciate a special difference. But more and more, everyone's only capable of appreciating it through and as systems individually grouped and together. With finite fact treatment nature, quality aspects of nature, grouped quality aspects of nature, and simultaneous. The suits and ties, counters and exceptions, where they make justifications of A through Z peace to an extent. That's a criminal insidiousness nature of peace. And the roles with the causes of it and their narratives by it. It is too, being and having been used remotely. Sickly distinctly at country A through Z, we are victims / hyper victims. See, it's easy to know that, okay, we have to stop nuclear weapons. But in other words, a lot of things are easy too. But the people that pretend that's easy, in other words, all sides are victim predators. We have a breaching method that knew and understands that nature itself, while holding us a unified needs to it as an individual species body. As an individual species body of individual bodies held opposite to at the same time. Everything is designed to show us the simultaneous / hyper simultaneous. It's the smallest finite thing. We're supposed to be a system that we have evolution's fruits and gifts, and means are revealed out of nowhere, positive everywhere at once, or else we sense. Everything should feel like game / else, or else we sense many ways. And no, in other words, shouldn't feel like a game invented by some guy named Bob and somewhere. In other words, I'm talking about real evolution. We all long clear water. We have means. You guys are speaking through economy, but because this is the cost of this, you guys speaking about value as systems, tactical from its own, tactical ulterior from what could appreciate the rest of its own system. That quality of fact treatment that could afford an answer proper or exceptions. In other words, where short words are appreciated by the branches of government and by the news at the same time. At countries A through Z is recorded how they are kept. Like the sciences. In other words, they're pretending that people aren't inclusive, because they're not speaking about the actual acts. And when they do, they're changing and faking what happened and what came first. They have these black KKK themes, Italian themed, Latino themed, identity theft roles, differences, rackets roles, and religious themes. And these are the ones interbranch with the black, white, with female judges, with some black KKK theme, Latino theme, Italian theme, with child abusers, changing and faking digital evidences with whiting forensics through time with the campuses of the kids. These are the fake motivations. Increasingly, there's a Victorian house on Two Rod Hwy. I don't know who lives there. And they're involved with a Phil Collusion, who's involved with the Bob Chase and whiting forensics, and a Joshua Julian too, with that Facebook itself, and with New Britain Superior Court, with people named KNERR. But there are also, I don't know if that's the same people as Kerr, but there are KERR people. Multiple people with the name Jerry Kerr also recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed by Officer Jerry Miller, planting evidence on all sides of my house, pretending I was growing marijuana when I was not before it was legalized, while as playing a game too, planting evidence on all sides of my house with people involved with the sexual and medical offenders of the kids. Also, a Leahy family are involved with them with this, and with fake conversations with me. And fake ties to kids and me since I was a kid. They covered that up with the police too, that did the same thing, and the news to cover it up. These people are involved with identity theft, fraud, slanders against anyone who tries to. That's what one of the things that our founders communicated for us to understand. They didn't even have free speech. There was an identity theft, fraud, slander method entrenched. We're supposed to understand why and how there's a witch child's place right next to Webb House, renamed the Webb Stevens Museum. There's a certain type of victim / hyper victim predator / hyper predator being and having been used remotely. Self-valued roles, blaming other things, others ourselves, for things that the breaching method caused and keeps. And then it will show needs how to pretend other. People that have been using words like crimes have been really sick, criminally foreign influence, fact-checking nature, quality aspects, natures of collusions with predicate acts with facts. And they'll want forgiveness. But they'll just but we have to force them to be honest first. That's why it's mandated law. I shouldn't have to beg Fox Connecticut News. Now they have this Kimberly Sullivan. Pretty sure that's the one involved with Daryl Sullivan, involved with a former director of the F.B.I, Robert Luskin, and various courts, and a Thaddeus Grabowski, people involved with Robert Chevrolet, a lawyer, a former director of the F.B.I, Robert Luskin. And he was directed by a lawyer, Judge Nations or Judge Winters, not to show up at a court case without a lawyer if that court case came, because that lawyer is also next to Fox Connecticut News and next to WFSB and next to WTNH, involved with predicate acts with facts with them and with their sources. And it's only and they're only confessing and demonstrating guilt by refusing to respond to me and get them onto paper, with the interbranch refusing to get onto paper, forging names, switching names, making confessions, having made confessions. These are also people increasingly on off the state judicial branch offices with organized crimes, all along the conjunctions and natures of conjunctions to it, like Route 3, involved with all kinds of natures of organized identity theft, fraud, slanders, fake motivations, fake sides of issues, and roles of the black KKK, Confederate flag theme, and fake motivations. In other words, when other people are wrong or right, they're dishonest about what they think and unequally. The same ones, and with the black KKK themes, it's important to pay attention to this, because these are also the ones involved with home break-ins in my area, and with some Confederate flag, foreign and domestic, military identity theft, fraud, slanders, roles, behavior, racketeering, worse than war crimes, at medical campuses too, intercities, with the same ones next to Harvard Hospital. That with their sources on, with the names next to the campuses, There's a lot of things that were brought up at once, and specifically because they used the crime method where they affect confessions intercities, as the breaching method shows them, for example. So sometimes they could do that, and then it makes a whole bunch of different subjects and natures of bad things at once. So if people do try to tell, they're going to change or fake what the people say and said, and then they're going to adapt because they had roles with those things intercities, including the names next to the crime scenes and the body dumping spots at the same exact time. They were recorded use/s of such. See, we have means to discern so much and revelations out of nowhere, but we have to let the hyper invisible but still discernible lead. So Foxct Connecticut News has a whole bunch of names next to them involved with Two Rod Hwy, where it runs into Hangdog Lane in the Berlin Turnpike before the heart of Hartford. And they're involved with all kinds of judges' families members and their family members with other agencies and multiple police departments with the same house/S, involved with all kinds of medicines and drugs, crimes, and identity theft, fraud, slanders, also with their educators and with databases. So it's important because these are also people next to the World Trade Center and the court next to it, also involved with secret ships from in the court and names on all sides of that case attached to fake to change evidences by police forging and switching names with intercities, with the Wethersfield police refusing to get on paper since I was a kid because they've increasingly been collusions with ones increasingly with overt criminal enterprise, private ones not legitimately. I don't know the Bose family. Chris Walters communicated that he knew to an extent that he was influenced to make a fake exception and try to pretend not to realize with his syntax, with someone who said it was a sister of a Charlie Bose at an Old Town Cafe, who's also involved with confessions of people tied to a Charlie Bose. I never had a word of conversation. I never saw him on the inside of school in my life. Never saw him outside of school in my life. In other words, they're trying to make it look like other. In other words, there are proofs that they need to pretend other because they have something to do with the people next to Foxct Connecticut News. A bunch of ways involved with the World Trade Center attack and Predicate Act since, but it's involved with other natures of murders, untimely deaths, and other natures of federal evidences crimes, and roles with names with that, where all sides of criminal and civil cases. Even probation officers, their family members, friends, the courts, the same thing. Their family members, friends, the police, retired police chiefs with the same house/S tied to old people and instances relative. In other words, they had wire crimes together in the past, ones with the name O'Brien and Collusion. And Rick Cianfaglione recorded capacity demonstrated confirmed they have something to do with Jonathan Maiano. Also with Brian Silver and with the Leahy family, with people involved on the sides of Central Connecticut State University, at Central Connecticut State University. Well, Paul Zano sought me out to record capacity demonstrate confirm this true. I didn't respond to him. He doesn't even know me. He tried to make fake. He was influenced to make fake exceptions of knowing me by his roles with various natures of investigators. Recorded also involved with his educators. I don't know their names. I didn't have a class with him, and they made a fake exception with a Ray Collusion and a Stephen Stocco, who's also involved with Wethersfield Police and New Britain's Central Connecticut State University. Also with people involved with former director of the F.B.I, Robert Luskin, on off Two Rod Hwy, with interbranch families in a whole bunch of different countries over criminal enterprises and private ones. People putting predicate acts with facts in databases, fake ties, fake natures of ties to people. I believe it has something to do with DACA too. It may have something to do with DACA. There's a Brian Bowen also who recorded capacity demonstrated confirmed. He involved his neighbors with and Maria Stephen Stocco involved the Maria Pizzino with them. And with the Two Rod Hwy and its conjunctions, and there are other people involved, like increasingly people tied to a Sal Cibiello and people that live near him have ties to body dumping spots and uses of that recorded. And Facebook has they made me look back and forth, and they won't get me myself won't let me get on Facebook to communicate because they've been replacing and changing my communications. Wethersfield police have people named Joshua Schumack and Joshua Stryker and Joshua Julian, intercities involved with some untimely deaths, identity thefts, and frauds. And the mother of a Joshua Schumack is involved with some people that recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed her involved with some religious and sexual offenders of kids, where people are repeating fake ties, fake natures of ties to their families and to themselves, and trying to plant fake exceptions. Has something to do with their roles with the intelligence families at Vernon, Connecticut, and roles with planting fake ties, fake natures of ties, fake motivations for it. Increasingly, were they trying to make a fake exception? And how I knew them and when they knew, timing of it. So Joshua Schumack, too, I never saw him in my area of my life. People from other areas recorded before I ever knew who he was. Recorded like a Justin Kolvinskis and a Justin Kolvinskis and a Mark Violet. Said they were involved also. They also demonstrated they have O'Brien family involved and a Collusion family that used to be in my area. They're involved with them. With the intelligence families, they've been putting fake things in databases, identity theft, fraud, slanders. With the police, like these Mendez police next to Foxct Connecticut News with a bunch of people. Like a Chet Casper. I never saw him on the inside of a campus in my life. There was one exception walking by just to check if it was true when I was in middle school. He's one of the ones all along Route 175 and its conjunctions involved with a former Mayor Gold, who involved with people in my 6th grade class. The WTNH also recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed. Are involved with the principal upskirt nature with federal evidences, crimes, identity theft, fraud, slanders against me. And they have their kids involved. There's ones with the name O'Neill who have roles with people from Saudi Arabia, with the Demoro family with Wethersfield police, and one's named Mendez with differences racketeering, intercultural, like there are tie-ins involved with identity thefts and frauds, with these ones next to Harvard Hospital with Tomorrow's Market and where they are now, and IL's Kitchen, involved with digital crimes with a principal upskirt nature. And their roles with other federal evidences crimes with a former Mayor Gold, and their roles with I forgot her name, Michelle Sandquist. I didn't respond to her. I only played to her ever. In my 6th grade class, she's involved with people that were the people from Central Connecticut State University and New Britain, Connecticut, are increasingly involved also with mayors. And with people that are interreligious, involved with untimely deaths and various natures of organized crimes with kids. But then they pretend passions and emotions about religions too, because they were involved with sequence shifts and cover-ups with predicate acts with facts into databases and connections between them, including at totally different campuses, and the difference of that. Per where and how it keeps clearer than day. 3 branches of government, they can't defend themselves. They're going to go speak about making legislation. Then they make it, it's for black people. That's why we're legalizing marijuana. Meanwhile, they got all these synthetic operated things before they even legalized marijuana, too. And the spots where they chose to put it years before that, people that were involved with the World Trade Center attack with the intelligence family. And years before that, it's got nothing to do with who's the owners and things like that. There's different owners at the buildings next to Foxct Connecticut News. Increasingly are intelligent in Hartford, Connecticut, in the state capital. Increasingly people tied to Chet Casper, recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed him involved with identity theft, fraud, slanders against me. And then he non-verbally confirmed Like right around the time a Greg Kyler was reported to have been murdered. He's also rolls next to the state capitol, next to Fox Connecticut News, with identity theft, fraud, slanders, with people also there involved, also next to and at WFSB, Connecticut's Channel 3 News, who are also people involved with WTNH, with corners of streets in Wethersfield and along roads and routes, and them trying to quantify what they say, and because they've been planting evidences and fake ties, fake natures of ties to people, and fake motivations for it. They're having their pictures taken around other people. All natures of investigators are being and have been used remotely, criminally foreign influence, not just in discernible ways and for discernible means. This is relative to what really kept and keeps suits and ties, counters, exceptions, and not one person brings up why and how we have white people's blacks of eyes and the breaching method that reassigned communications by that clearer than day to discern. Now no one brings it up, let alone how our founders told us to bring that up, but our founders' communications are changed. See, they have experts, but not just, but not honestly. The history experts were obligated to teach what they didn't even, in other words, that James Madison, our founders, plural, we're supposed to refer to them singular as James Madison, and that is his plan. And then they went and got George Washington to use that plan to counter-extort and to force to be the other founders, which he was forced to be too. We were supposed to be honest about the extortion of George Washington. See, but this breaching method measured and maintained. We had no sophistication. We had a bunch of people who would pretend passions, emotions about sophistication dishonestly, using and having used all exception nature to pretend other. See the big fake sides too, the difference of Democrat, Republican. That difference was used the same way as they use black people's ways. We have the same color eyes, different color eyes at the same time. These are people that are sick because forgiveness is because A through Z are sick, because you guys came through sick campuses. You're supposed to have forgiveness, not change fake what people say. Many pray. In other words, too, they're showing the president's sick information. That's one of the reasons leaders say things that, like, in other words, the president says, oh, he's going to throw people out for doing such things. They'll frame people. The second you do that, they'll frame people. They never stop using their own differences or other people's differences. Everywhere there was a formal law, identity, private, and that they had time, collusion, /S with overt criminal enterprise, private one, because this breaching method showed people need to how to cover up. How you guys used and appreciated differences. Tactical is here from how nature communicated for you too. And tactical is here from how our founders communicated for you too. But you have been entertaining time treatments with each age's quality of fact-checking nature. They have been incapable of defending that and of affording to be discerned what each ageable is actually capable and being directed to appreciate. Can't appreciate it. These jobs, you can't appreciate the value of jobs. Honestly. Look at all those people stacked in the buildings behind the people in the rap videos. Go get a job, and there's a burger shop there. And every science they come to is a liar. Not integrity, not one honest science, let alone them together. Spoke for New York City. Like that, our bodies agree. We make means come out of nowhere. We make means for people to know they're not going to get in trouble for things, and people are going to everything's going to be more safer. You guys prevent too the right outcome in any nature of case. They have the word. You have them with the word reparations instead of in the phrase injunctive reliefs, because you guys are collusion /S. Measuring and maintaining, sensing for the breaching method That it maintains the only one that's you guys can't speak for injunctive reliefs, but as in through collusion self-value. You guys can't even understand and appreciate properly Native American rights. That nature itself shows us that nature is hyper-native pure, and it's Native American because it's hyper-additional nature. And there's only one way that if we're not Native American, we can be Native American. That's not fake, as like a hyper tribe. In other words, we have to have our American history taught properly first. There's a nature of the Native Americans, and are discernibly ones who wouldn't did agree that we need to get a constitution unabridged. Or to get people, they need to get people forced to get to language like telling us to get the Constitution unabridged, and simultaneously, additionally, why and how we have rights too numerous to have to list them, let alone while there's a breaching method entrenched, with worse than just any of the parts of itself entrenched, like slavery, sickly distinctly against black northern counties and southern counties, but sickly distinctly, non-distinctly too, against every single person. Specifically to keep the sides, to keep way worse than groupthink, and groupthink not fathoming. While it's countering groupthink, it's sensing for the breaching method. It's only capable of speaking for group differences, self-valuing. The criminal enterprises have been group tactically wrong. The terrorists have been group tactically wrong, as rules of predicate acts with facts, methods, and databases. And he said, she said, at location crime scene collusions, including digital, recorded. New Britain Superior Court, Harper Courts, and the F.B.I. have digital crimes, predicate acts with facts, with their Facebook pages and with the Facebook pages of campuses, and with names at the judicial branch offices and at the corrections offices, offensively preventing people's voices. Please, Judge Napolitano, get them on paper, one name in sequence, Judge Napolitano. I told you there's violence involved, and the only way to have peace, the only way to have a peaceful means to settle the problem, which, in other words, they do it every year, but it's more and more people tied to the same house/S, and one's involved with the principal upskirt nature, but way worse digital crimes and predicate acts and the natures of organized crime. He and others had roles with then and now. I recorded Sandy Hook campuses too, right through administrations. They have roles with intelligence too. There are proofs with this O'Brien family in the confessions they affected, and their roles with a body dumping spot of a serial killer, even if he was made up. That spot is increasingly involved with people intercities, involved with the people with the wire crimes, the fake conversations with me with the police when I was a kid and now as an adult, as the ones with the wire crimes with the extended family members, like a Bob Chase brought up. Bob Chase brought up the extended family members. The people who were involved with the ones from the other areas have been playing inside my street since I was a kid. All sides of criminal and civil cases. There's a Dean LaPointe and a John LaPointe. Years after the outcome, there was they sued me with a neighbor of theirs. I don't even know his name. He's involved with some people off the state judicial branch offices, off the corrections offices, involved with sexual and medical offenders of kids, involved with identity theft, fraud, slanders, sequence shifts, filming things to hide and pretend what came first, as collusions, fake ties and fake natures of ties to people. In other words, so that's also with people on off Two Rod Hwy, Hang Dog Lane, a Lance, what is his name? So in other words, please get them on paper, one name in sequence. Thank you. Judge Napolitano.